Cowboys mean a great deal to Montana. Our largest industry in this state is agriculture. That, of course, livestock being a huge part of that. Still into this day, you still need a man or a woman or a young person that can get on a horse, take care of the livestock, whether it's bringing them in to pull a calf or taking them to a new pasture, um, raising them with great care and dignity, because what you sell in the fall is pounds of beef. And so the best way you can do that is to take great care of your cattle. So I would say the best cowboys I've worked with in my lifetime have been, young, faithful men to the profession. Cowboying is a profession. It's not a Hollywood made-up thing where you just, go out and do it like playing golf. It's a lifetime pursuit and a profession. We're at the Yellowstone County Museum, high atop the Rim Rocks in Billings, Montana. Here at the museum, one of the real interesting facets and exhibits we have is telling of the first 4 men that started bringing cattle and horses into the Yellowstone River Basin beginning about 1879. The first one that we know came in was a man by the name of Edward Cardwell, bringing livestock from western Montana. Alvin Ellis came after him with a much larger herd of the first round being about 1,500 head in 1880, followed by a young man by the name of John Henry Dover that as a young man of 17 or 18 literally rode his saddle horse leading his pack horse over the mountains from Idaho as he was interested in visiting the then Custer battlefield, and then he acquired a herd of shorthorn cattle. The next one was a man by the name of Nate Cooper, who as a boy of 17 helped 2 other men trail horses all the way from Oregon over into the Yellowstone Valley. The railroad stopped at Bismarck, North Dakota, and could not continue until after the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. So it meant this land was open and free to use. It belonged to the United States government. These men could homestead a small 160 or 320 acre parcel, usually along a river or a creek for the water source. And so these men sought their fortune. They knew that the railroad would be coming up the Yellowstone Valley, traveling from east to west, and these railroad crews were large numbers of men with incredibly strenuous work, and they needed to be fed protein. Well, the best animal protein is that of the bovine. So they gathered their herds in Oregon and Idaho where the cattle were plentiful and trailed them into this part of the area and then sold the beef to the railroad construction crews as they came westward up the Yellowstone Valley. This is the old McCormick chuck wagon here at the Yellowstone County Museum. It, as the numbers indicate, on the side of the wagon, he began a large cattle ranching operation in 1893. It was called the Custer Cattle Company. This is essentially an old freight wagon, which means it's heavy duty, heavy axle, heavy wheels, heavy box, that was transformed into a mobile kitchen that they used on the cattle range. They put a chuck box in the back there. It was essentially a kitchen cupboard to be used in the wagon to hold the ingredients for the food that the cowboys would have every day. The utensils here and the cooking pots and pans are just like what they'd use out there. They'd always, of course, have a big kettle of water on the fire for hot water to do dishes or clean up anything. When this chuck wagon was used on the open range, of course, it would go along with the trail herd. They'd be moving cattle along. This was the portable kitchen. The cook was completely in charge of the chuck wagon. His day would begin by bringing in the team of horses that it would take to pull this wagon. They'd have large canvas flies, they called them, over a tent over the wagon to protect from the weather. A lot of work, all manual labor. The cook would prepare the meal for the cowboys, then break down, load everything back on the wagon because nothing was left behind. They were going to a new location every day. But it was easier than walking, and that was his job to get to the next location and set up before the cowboys got there and prepare their next meal. Those are branding irons that they were carried along. We use them for display purposes only. When you purchase or raise livestock, cattle and horses, you use an identifying mark on there, and that's called a brand, and it's registered, legally registered in every state to your to a man or a family or a woman, and that is your mark of ownership on that animal. Even to this day, animal theft is a pretty big problem. If you don't put a mark or brand, that means they call them slicks, and there's no proof of ownership. So this is registered in the state. When you go to sell a cow or a horse, and it has a brand on it, it has to belong to that owner to legally transfer ownership. When the cowboy culture began, and this man or woman or person, which is called cowboy, had to live in all the elements. They lived and worked outdoors, and so they had to dress accordingly. And in the old days, they really just had animal skins to use, much like the natives. There were no modern textiles to repel water or rain or snow, and so they would cover their bodies with leather apparel. These are called chaps, chaperos, derived from the Spanish word. And these would protect the people from brush, from getting their legs poked with brush. It would protect them from cold. This particular style, which is made from the hide and hair of an Angora goat, has a natural lanolin in it, and that would repel water. You see the rain and the water would wash off. So they would wear that, and it was tremendously warm. They're lined with canvas. They would wear that in the winter, much as the protective clothing of today. And so that developed with the cowboy culture, and it became a style. You see, they could make them beautifully ornamented and do tooled leather on it. If they wanted to, they could put silver on it. If you wanted to be fancy, they adapted the fringe, which would allow water to run away from your leg. It would pull the water away, and it's mostly ornamental. People like the long fringe because it has this movement when you walk in it. They're very much used today. In fact, this is a real contemporary pair that I made not long ago for a local cowboy, and the Angoras, again, in the Buckaroo culture, the Vaquero culture, they still like to wear these. It identifies them with their cowboy tradition. And of course, saddles. A man riding a horse, you can certainly ride him bareback. It's quite uncomfortable, I'll tell you. Plus, you can't do any work in it. A lot about handling livestock. Number one, you got to stay on your horse. Saddles are made. This front end is called the swells. You can see by the larger swell, it would enable the rider to grip and not move sideways in this particular style. To take care of your cattle, there's times they get sick. They might need to be caught and given medicine. Well, if you're out in an open range or whatever, you don't have corrals or whatnot, they invented the method of lassoing or roping a critter, and that would allow the cowboy to get a hold of him, to get the critter on the ground, to either to brand him or to give him medicine to make him well, to vaccinate him. So the American Western saddle style literally developed from that. Prior to that, there were the English and the European saddles that did not have the horn. The horn is put on the saddle so that you could tie a rope to it or dally, wrap around the horn with your lasso, and that would secure you and your horse to the critter that you've roped. You know, it's had a great many changes, and many things still do remain the same as far as cowboying today as it was in mid to late 19th century. Obviously, the motor vehicle came into play after World War II. In the decades prior to that, you'd get up and you'd ride your horse out to wherever you were going. In this day and age now, the use of a pickup truck and a horse trailer is widely used. The future for cowboys in Montana, I feel, is incredibly bright. Will always be a great livestock industry. I believe strongly with all my heart that people need to eat protein, you know, for a good, healthy lifestyle. So Montana still needs cowboys and cow people, men and women dedicated to raising their livestock and taking great care of them.